Order, and it is 12:30. We'll now have item 10, which is the report on enforcement statistics, and Daniel Rangel.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a special investigator with the board, here to present the statistics. For the first few pages, we kind of updated the way that we're capturing the information to kind of lay it out better for the board members to understand. And that began in September of this year. So there is some information that was not available prior to that date, so there are some asterisks in there. But I'll kind of go through this. So the complaints received, it is broken down into consumer complaints, which are generally classified as field investigations, and arrests and convictions, and applicants, which are usually reviewing criminal history that is disclosed on an application, are usually classified as our desk investigations. So there's the breakdown and the totals of each of those for each of the months beginning of this fiscal year through October 18th of 2019, when the information was compiled. Moving down to the next section is a complaint case type received. So we broke down those complaints received and what category they would fall under, seeing that the vast majority fall under our desk investigations, which are the arrests or convictions, subsequent arrests or convictions for licensees and or applicants disclosing criminal convictions on their applications. Moving down to the next section is the complaint closures with no additional disciplinary action. So that's such as applicants that we reviewed the criminal history information and deemed that it was appropriate for them to move forward with the licensing process. Other ones such as consumer complaints or field investigations that resulted in insufficient evidence or no violations, or those that were no jurisdiction and were referred to the appropriate board or bureau. Moving to the next page, investigations. This is kind of similar to the first page. It's just an overall review of the investigations and showing you the classifications of those, such as desk investigations and field investigations during each of those months. So these are the totals received, I believe. And then below that is the closed investigations, showing the desk investigations and field investigations that were closed during each of these months. Next is investigation case aging. So this is something that the board in previous meetings had asked a breakdown for not only field investigations, but also desk investigations and the timeframes that each of those open investigations fall under. So here's the breakdown. As you can see with the desk investigations, majority of those fall within the 0 to 6 months. There are a few outliers, and sometimes those are criminal convictions that may have not been resolved yet, but rather criminal cases that have not been resolved yet that the board is monitoring for resolution before we can move forward with any action. For field investigations, we do have a majority in the 0 to 6 months, and with the just an update, these stats were last captured on October 18th. Since then, there was 5 additional field investigations that were closed, 3 of those being within the over 2-year mark. So we are making a lot of progress with closing out those older investigations.
Daniel, how many do we have of those older ones?
So with those three, then that would leave us with three, with two or more. Of those remaining three, one is going to be moving forward to be referred, and the other two are still in progress. On the next page is the breakdown of cases that are with the Attorney General's office. So these are discipline cases that were sent to the Attorney General's office in those various months, whether that's filing an accusation, information transmitted to the AG's office for review. Below that is the probation subsequent discipline. So that would be like a petition to revoke cases if someone violated their probation and we're petitioned to revoke, sending it to the AG's office for filing. And then below that is all cases that are currently pending with the Attorney General's office. We only have captured the last 2 months. The Attorney General's office has been a lot better in moving forward with our cases a lot quicker. So we're happy with that as well. And then below that is all pending cases and the aging timeframes. As you can see, the vast majority of those cases being 0 to 6 months, and or 1.5 years or lower. We don't have any beyond 1.5 years, greater than 1.5 years with the AG's office. I know as we had in the past. So that's just a reflection of the AG's office work that they're doing. On the next page is the citation and fines. A breakdown starting at the beginning of this fiscal year of the citations that were issued and the amount of money that was cited upon these individuals. There was a spike in September, and that could be attributed to recruitment and staffing of our enforcement analysts who came on and kind of worked through some of the backlog that we had after the retirement of our previous enforcement analyst. So we appreciate her hard work in getting that desk caught up.
Jason, on that page, could I ask that you correct HIPAA spelling, please? Daniel, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm on the wrong page, sorry.
Okay.
The next page?
I might have been ahead, sorry.
And just to piggyback on Daniel's report here, a couple of issues. In regards to passage of AB 2138, any new complaints that we go and investigate, we can only go back 7 years to look at prior convictions. Unless it's an egregious thing, murder or sexual assault, something like that, then it's open. However, we are restricted to 7 years now. And overall, we do have 3 years to work a case. So I know a lot of times cases may be pending on our reports, and just want to let you know that we do have 3 years. And the reports that you receive here, and I want to give kudos to enforcement because they've worked hard to get the reports nice and clear. Hopefully that you approve of these reports and like them. It breaks out everything that has been requested in the past, and hopefully we'll continue to modify our processes to make it more efficient and convey the information to you.
Just a quick point on that 7-year limitation for the board to consider criminal convictions. That becomes operative July 1st of 2020, so another 7 months or so.
It's not retroactive though, correct?
I do have a question as well, Tony. When applicants submit their fingerprints for the DOJ, the report comes back, has everything on it, and then we as a staff then looks at it and only goes back 7 years, right? It's not that the DOJ is going to limit what they send you.
No, I believe the DOJ will send us all the information. However, once this is enacted, then we can only go back so far. Correct.
Daniel, are you familiar Noel's request on the HIPAA spelling, did you found it and you fixed that? Because I have yet to find it.
Is it on the last page? Is that what we're?
Okay. Which you haven't talked about yet?
Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah.
It was on the wrong page.
Okay.
It's under enforcement
No,
statistics.
it's spelled
It should be HIPAA.
and it is fast.
He's got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Daniel? Did you go through each of them? Yeah, I didn't think so. You have that last one, we didn't, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so moving on from citations down to probation. So we have currently 41 probationers. 3 of those probationers are tolling, which means that they're not practicing in the state and therefore not accredited time towards their completing their probation. Of the 41 probationers, 24 are required to submit to biological fluid testing. And as you can see below that is each of those months that we have identified positive results for substance abuse, not substance abuse, but substances on the testing and or violations of probation. Not every violation of probation is something that would result in a petition to revoke, but it is noted, and if it continues, it could ultimately lead to that. Violation of the positive test is something that would be elevated to the Attorney General's office. The spike that we're seeing in the positive tests, we kind of attribute to our new contract that we have for testing, which allows us to not only test urine, but also blood testing, which can give us longer range for alcohol. So, our probation monitor, Albert Law, has been on top of these as they come in and swiftly moving forward with them.
I have a quick question. Was it in the state of California that the vendor that did the testing did not calibrate correctly and it missed? Was it in California? Whoever was doing the testing of substance abuse or whatever, was it in California or not? Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I thought it was California.
And just to inform the members, and with a little bit of history with the enforcement, they've done a wonderful job, like I said earlier. And when I first came on, if I remember correctly, our old cases, we had something in the realm of 17 to 18 cases that were, let's just say, needed to be worked on and coming up to that 3-year term. So with the report today of only 3 cases remaining, I think they've done an outstanding job.
I also wanted to say thank you for putting everything in the report that we've asked for and how well this is spelled out, so thank you.
And I can't take credit for the report. Our Assistant Executive Officer, Elizabeth Elias, is the one who worked diligently in putting this together and looked at the best way to present it to you guys so that it's easily understood. So kudos to her.
Any other questions or comments for Daniel? Any questions or comments for Daniel from the members of the public? Saying none, once again, an informational report. Thank you very much. Did you have something, Michelle? Okay. It looked like you might. Okay. We will now move to item number 11, which is the discussion and possible action on myofunctional therapy. Is it within the dental hygiene scope of practice, CCR 1088, C capital E? And Tony, please present this item.
Okay, at our prior board meeting, this issue of myofunctional therapy was brought to be requested as a future agenda item. and to discuss whether the treatment technique is within the scope of practice for dental hygienists. Pursuant to California Code of Regulations, Section 1088, little c, large e, only myofunctional evaluation is listed as a service that dental hygienists can provide within their scope. Board staff is aware that there are multiple licensees who have been certified and utilize this technique on their patients to help alleviate problems with chewing, swallowing, temporal mandibular joint, or TMJ functions, oral hygiene, or other problems. However, the law states that a myofunctional evaluation is acceptable but does not provide guidelines for ongoing therapeutic treatment. This is a new issue, and it hasn't been determined whether licensees are using this technique independently with their certification or under the supervision of a licensed dentist. Information that I've provided in the packet shows an example of this where, and I'm not picking on that individual, it's just available on the website, of where this individual is advertising using the RDH acronym for their licensure, but also touting the wares of this myofunctional therapy. In the information that I reviewed, as you can see in the materials, there's no indication that this individual, if she's using it as an RDH, is performing these functions under the supervision of a dentist. So I bring it to the board's attention to discuss and see what direction we can go into. I think the pros of this is by clarifying whether myofunctional therapy is considered within the dental hygienist's scope of practice, it'll provide us as staff who are non-practitioners a solid reference within the law as to whether licensees can perform this technique should there be an instance where an action against a licensee occurs. The cons, of course, I've read the information in regards to myofunctional therapy. I, as an ex-practitioner, see the benefits of it and everything and what it entails. However, I'm glad that it is a multidisciplinary approach. But whether dental hygienists specifically can do this or not, that's for the board to determine. So I leave it to the board to open discussions. Thank you.
Can I ask something here? If we were adding another category to our licensure, how would we have to go about that? For example, when the RDHAP became the RDHAP, what was the process and procedure to make that happen?
The first step, I believe, unfortunately, that happened before I came here, but the general is that we would need legislation because the legislators are the only ones who can approve a change in scope of practice. So it's something where we would need to get a bill done to have this additional scope change
Don't we
completed.
have to have a study first to see if this is a valid thing?
Potentially.
So an
There's a lot of different
HHMP?
steps. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what our concern is as staff is, as you can see, I mean, it's clearly open on the website, on the internet, I should say, that practitioners are doing this function. And us as staff, we're not sure, just in case, if we do receive a complaint against somebody, whether this is something that we can go after them for.
Okay, so I have a couple issues about this. So this term you're using, the term you're using is myofunctional
Therapy.
therapy. Okay, okay. So normally, when we are under a lot of stress and stuff, a lot of times our muscles go into spasm. Usually, and people go into a lot of pain in the right here on the jaw joint. I'm talking layman's term for everyone here.
Thank you.
And so normally how you treat that is very conservatively. Usually you give them a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, you give them a guard to wear, and you give them a soft diet. As a dentist, I'm talking about. So, but you've got to make sure that there's no other issues that are causing the pain, the chief complaint. So I just need to understand, where's the diagnosis coming from? And I need to understand this like, what is it? Like, is it TMJ dysfunction syndrome? Like, what is it? That's my question.
So myofunctional therapy generally involves habits, tongue thrust.
Okay.
Generally, myofunctional therapists, and those of you that know better chime in, oftentimes work with orthodontists because we know that if orthodontic treatment is conducted, they take they've gone through everything, looks beautiful, and they haven't corrected the tongue thrust, which is a kind of a muscular habit, I guess you would say, then everything all the time and money that you spent things would move around. It also includes digit habits, right. It can include swallowing concerns, learning how to swallow better. So they included, I think there's some information in that you provided. There's a couple different ways that people go to school. I am not a myofunctional therapist. Is there any myofunctional therapists here? No. So there is like not a state-recognized certification program, but there is extra training that people have gone through in order to be able to practice myofunctional therapy. And generally, they are a dental office will refer to a myofunctional therapist. And I think the question here, though, is whether or not the myofunctional therapist can use their RDH license on any sort of marketing or to say that they're a dental hygienist. For me, it almost seems like we know we teach assessment, we teach to look for swallowing, we teach to look for malocclusion, we teach to look for tongue thrust in dental hygiene programs. And the law's clear that we can assess. I think where Tony's question is does it say anything about therapy?
Or diagnosis.
Yeah. Assessment, it's kind of vague. I mean, evaluation could include, generally these patients are referred. That you don't just look in the yellow pages and say, oh, I want to go to a myofunctional therapist. Generally, a dentist, usually an orthodontist, will refer to a myofunctional therapist.
And then the next person that was up to speak is Gary.
Just very quickly, I just want to be clear on something. The way I'm understanding this is already an approved therapy for certain practitioners to do, and the question is whether or not it should be extended. Is that correct? As to who can do it?
I don't think it's an approved therapy in that it's not within a school program or
I don't mean
approved
for
by.
dental hygienists. I mean that there are medical practitioners who are authorized to do this.
There are speech and language pathologists will do myofunctional therapy.
Occupational therapists?
Occupational
Okay,
therapists
so
who
the
have been
question
trained
is
do
whether
it.
or not dental hygienists should. Correct? Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
now I believe there was Nikki and then Dr. Martinez. Nikki?
No, I think, again, I think that the piece that I'm unclear about is the RDH license then infringing upon occupational therapists and speech pathologists that are specifically trained for this, even though there are CE courses that a hygienist can take, but there's not a certification. So if that person wanted to become a myofunctional therapist, would they then have to go to the training that the occupational therapist or the speech pathologist went through in order to provide?
I'm not sure it's part of, I don't know if it's, I don't want to, I know speech and language pathologists, I don't know specifically about OTs. I know some OTs do it, but I don't know if they took additional training or not. So I don't want you to think that I'm saying OTs can do it, because I don't know.
Okay, Dr. Martinez?
Somebody.
So I left dental education in 2015, but we did not, that was not part of our curriculum. I mean, normally tongue thrusting, pushing the teeth, thrusting your tongue out, causing the teeth to move, and then you need ortho. And then you need ortho, which definitely, you should put that in the hands of a dentist, I would feel. I just have never heard of a hygienist, and I'm confused about how do you diagnose it, and then what is the treatment, and what do they give them for the treatment? That's my question. Is it an appliance? Well, yeah, for tongue thrusting it could be, but again, there's just a lot of questions I have that I'm confused about.
I think,
Yeah.
I move that myofunctional therapy is not within the dental hygiene scope of practice. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded that myofunctional therapy is not within the current dental hygiene scope of practice. Discussion. And so the reason that I am introducing this is that I read all of the material, and I was very alarmed from a consumer standpoint. I have sleep apnea. And in the material, it said that mild to moderate sleep apnea could be solved with this. I have a great deal of respect for my dental hygienist. And if she would have told me that she believed, and I give her my medical record, I tell her what medicines I'm taking, I tell her what types of treatments I have. If she would have asked me if I snore, which was in one of the website materials, I would have said yes, terribly. And then she could have said, wow, I think you could really benefit from myofunctional therapy. And, it only takes, I read it all, only takes about 10 sessions, and it'll, you go in, it's a direct bill, but don't worry, you can bill your insurance, might even cover it, and I would have gone through that treatment. But I have a serious sleep apnea problem that can only be solved with a CPAP machine. But I would have spent all that money and all that time trying to have it solved with myofunctional therapy when it wouldn't have helped me. And I believe that would have hurt me. It would have cost me money and it would have hurt me. And also, in addition to that, if you looked at the material, it'll do everything. It'll get rid of these wrinkles up here above my mouth. It will get rid, if I weigh too much, I'll weigh less, because I will be able to eat better, chew better, and if I have any problem with TMJ, I won't have it anymore. And anyway, my concern is that it cheapens our profession. I do not believe that we should be doing functions that others are doing. And I was referred by my allergist to a sleep apnea doctor. I had a sleep test. It was determined that I had a serious problem. I'm really glad that my dental hygienist didn't do that, didn't suggest it for me, because I would have ended up not being treated properly. So that's my reason for making the motion as I have.
I would like to say a little bit opposite, only because I think as a hygienist, we should not provide the therapy, but most definitely have the education to refer the patient out. So
Evaluation.
Right, so
You
in
have it
private
now.
practice, I do share with patients, when they're children, for sure. Children should not snore. So anything I find, go to orthodontist, professional. If that orthodontist says something different, I would like you to find a new orthodontist, one who goes more into detail about the actual problem your baby is having. So I do think that the report is a good report. Should we diagnose? No. Should we treat? No. But most definitely educate and refer out.
And that would be within this purview.
And I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the board as well. The materials where I found all the information is actually from an academy. It's called the Academy of Myofunctional Therapy, and I believe they're located in this area somewhere. And that's where apparently many individuals get their certification. And again, my concern is there's no reference to even consulting with a dentist or what have you. So that is my main concern, on them treating individuals independently and utilizing the RDH license.
When this came up before, which was quite a few years ago, we said that it was really important that we looked at how new categories within our licensure happen and what the process is for that to happen. And I believe what they're asking for is another category. So this would have to have a study that goes with it, and then it would have to go through the legislative process, and putting an RDH beyond that name before that happens would be like us not having the RDHAP category and saying that we can go out and do those things. So I would move along with what you're saying, that we give them the directions for going and looking at how you would put this together and how their association would bring that forward.
But I have a question on that comment, because I haven't received any type of inquiry about adding it to the scope. So I'm just wondering, my concern is with the practitioner out there performing this, there hasn't been any official request to expand the scope. So I think that that step is maybe a little premature. I just want to determine whether it is within the scope, so that way we can move forward as far as looking at whether there is any wrongdoing with how they're practicing.
If they have the RDH after their name, and I don't know if anybody agrees with me, if they're saying I'm doing this because I'm licensed as an RDH, it's not in our category except to do the assessment. But I think that we need to send a message too about, if that is what's being reported, that we need to tell them what the process is again.
Well, in the one example that was in our packet, the person is an RDH, but they also have this certification from this academy. So they're not necessarily saying that they're able to do that as an RDH. They're saying that they're able to do it because they have this additional information.
But when I put my RDH after my name, that to me, that's the same as
You're
saying.
misleading the public, is what
Exactly.
you're doing.
Yeah.
And so what I was going to do, I didn't anticipate this topic being solved in one meeting. Obviously, it's a big issue. But potentially for the next meeting, because we were short on time, I was going to contact this Myofunctional Therapy Academy, have somebody provide a presentation and provide additional information and see where we go from there.
And my comment is, who's doing oversight? If it's, is there an orthodontia board? Is that part of dental? To me, they should be aware of this, and there might already be looking into who's regulating this.
I did go over to this speech pathology board and inquired with them. They had never heard of the technique. So it's something, it's not new, but evidently in the materials, they indicate that speech therapists, whether it's here or not, are doing this procedure. So it's something where I can check with other boards. I don't know of any oversight for myofunctional therapy, but I could definitely check into that.
We have two people waiting to speak, Noel and then Nikki.
So I would ask, if you're going to have them come and speak, that we also have someone from the Speech Pathologists Association contacted, and anybody else that would apply to that, so that we can make sure that we're hearing both sides of this.
It wasn't clear from the organization if they specifically just train dental professionals to do the myofunctional. So I do know that there are other continuing education specific to dental, like LVI, that does the myofunctional training, and that is specific to dental providers. So you may want to also invite someone that is specific to dental and get, I guess, their perspective as to why they think it falls under dentistry as opposed to the other professions.
So my concern about having someone come to speak and all of that is that in the interim, we're giving the impression that we want to find out more about it, but we're not, and I agree with Noel, we ought to add in what needs to be done. Could not this industry do that? Look into what is being done, who is doing it, all of that stuff, and come in and do a presentation. But meanwhile, we send a message out that currently it does not appear to be in the scope of practice. But we have Michelle ready to go. And then we'll go to public comment, depending on if there's any other comment from members.
I feel that, I don't feel like the board members really have a clear view of what therapy is and whether or not, I do believe that some of the therapy they do is within the scope of the dental hygiene practice, some is not. I feel we should refer this and have it come back as opposed to voting on it right now, because if we refer it, it's still going to be it's still going to come back. But I don't feel like there's a clear understanding of every single aspect of what is being considered as a myofunctional therapist, and whether or not that, I think some is not, but I think some is within the scope. And I think we need more information before we make a blanket statement. I move to refer.
I just want to clarify just one thing.
I can refer that motion. I believe I can. Refer it back to staff.
That would be tabling,
Withdrawing the motion.
withdrawal, yeah.
I just had a comment that Michelle said, some things may be within the scope and some things may not. I agree with that. However, so long as it's done under the supervision of a dentist. I just want to make that clear. So, thank you.
Take a comment? Okay. This organization that whatever gives them a certificate, is it like, who are they? I mean, are they like, do they get accredited by, who are they, how do they get that status? That's my question, because then they're not.
I researched it to the extent to obtain the information, and they do put out good information to put it in understandable terms for people to read, but on their website, I didn't see any type of accreditation.
Yeah, I don't want to know how they get that status to teach it and who like endorses it. I mean, I've not heard it in my profession.
I believe it's kind of like becoming a nutritionist, becoming a
Yeah.
personal trainer. There's training programs that help them do that. I don't know if it's like accredited by WASC or anything like that.
I'm going to go back to the referred issue because I talked to Jason, and while the way to handle that would be for me to withdraw the motion, and I'm not willing to do that. My concern is that it will, in the meantime, as we're investigating it and everything, and researching it and all of that, people will be allowed to cause harm, and I don't believe that's in our best interest. And yes, I'm a public member. What do I know about whatever it is, myofunctional therapy, or anything else that you do? But I do know what it's like for me to be a consumer, and I do know that I believe in the people that treat me, and I believe my dental hygienist. So now I'm going to, we have, I think we still have a member, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, Susan, I do agree with you. When I finished school in 2007, the first office, the hygienist, was already into this deeply. And I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? And so it blew me away because this is nothing about hygiene whatsoever. What school she went to, what education she obtained, I don't know. Certificate and everything. So I do agree with you that it's something, it is a little bit scary if it's in the wrong hands.
I'd like clarification on what Michelle wanted here. Is it that you did not want to vote on the determination as to whether it is currently within the scope, or is it just that you also wanted additional information and study on this?
I personally don't think the board members here understand enough about the topic to even make a decision. That's my concern. So if we can't refer it, we can't refer it. But I don't think people are. Do you feel that you understand exactly what myofunctional therapy
No.
is, so that you could vote on whether or not you think it's within the scope or not?
Well, I can say that it is not listed in terms of a being there.
And we could still fall back on that, and if there is inquiries,
And
the board,
that's sort
the
of the
board
way I
would say,
interpreted what she was
you may
saying.
do evaluation, that's all that's legally allowed, but to blanketly say we cannot do it, I don't feel like we have enough information.
Okay, thank you.
And I would want to see the records. Definitely, I would see the patient records to see what this person is doing, because that will be the answer to me. That is.
What I'm suggesting is we can still do that. We're just saying that currently it is not, and we can ask for further clarification because perhaps it is. But it doesn't appear to be. It does not appear to be at this time, and no one has proved that to me.
There's part of it that is in our, as far as in the Dental Hygiene Practice Act, it says we can assess.
Yeah,
So that
evaluation.
is part of it. Yeah.
Evaluation, and I'm not opposed to that. Scope, okay, I will, what about this? I propose a rewording of the motion. I move that myofunctional therapy is not within the current dental hygiene scope of practice, but myofunctional evaluation is. Okay? Does my second agree with that? Sandy?
I don't think we need to put it down that it is or it isn't at this point. I think it's just, we'll table it and, to me,
No, I lost my second. So
I'm
then,
sorry.
in that,
Oh,
no,
I
no,
was
that's
supposed to
okay.
second.
That's okay. So is there anyone else that wants to second it?
I'll second.
Thank you. So the motion still exists. Now, are you okay with changing it the way I had suggested?
Yes. I think it clarifies what is already stated, that they can evaluate it, just not be a part of the therapy.
Okay, now, any other questions or comments from members of the committee?
Yes, it would be understood that something that might also be myofunctional therapy, but being done for another purpose could still be done.
That's why it's confusing.
I don't understand.
Well, okay, I can't give you a really good example, but if there's a procedure that one would use for myofunctional therapy that might also be a therapy that could be used to treat something else, then it could still be used, but it's the purpose for which you're doing it. There may be things listed there. I haven't gone
When you-
down the full list, you know.
Aesthetic. It's,
When you evaluate, that means that you're suggesting there may be a problem and you refer out.
No. I'm saying that there may be some other problem which requires a certain treatment, which is also used for myofunctional therapy. In other words, it's used, Venn diagram. This treatment is in both categories, something that is listed and something that isn't listed. I just want to be clear that that's possible.
Evaluation's pretty clear to me. Go ahead.
Jason, can I ask, as you look at this right now, what would you say at this point?
It's vague. I mean, it's unclear what state entity has regulatory oversight over this profession or niche. I think ultimately if the board decides that, for example, sections 1908 and 1910 of the Business and Professions Code, that this myofunctional therapy does fall within the scope of practice, the board's going to have to promulgate regulations to properly define what that is, what kind of services that includes, to apprise licensees, stakeholders, other interested parties, exactly what this entails and, allow them to voice their objections or support for this during the 45-day comment period, so.
So before we make a statement of yes or no, are you saying that we need to investigate further?
If you're asking for my personal opinion, I would say it's probably not within the scope of practice. That would be my
Okay.
initial assessment without knowing more about what that entails.
Okay.
Now, I kind of reserve the right to kind of amend my conclusion at this
Yes.
time.
Wait a second. Are you done?
I am.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not sure we need this motion because we already have on the books, we know that they can do myofunctional evaluation. So I think we should just stand behind the law that we have now when there's questions and investigate and figure out what this board wants to do, or if anything, we may elect to say we don't want to even be part of that. But to actually say, to repeat what is already in the law, it doesn't make sense to me. It says we can do evaluation. That's what we should stand behind.
And we have done that for many, many years. The challenge that we have is that staff is getting wanted clarification and has been getting questions about it apparently, and we seem to have practitioners out there using it.
Just to clarify, this isn't taught in the schools, right? In any kind of education program?
Some of the things are taught.
There are.
Yeah, that's where the confusion is.
Okay.
It appeared as though evaluation is taught in the dental hygiene schools that are accredited, our schools that we've approved. But the school that is offering this and the therapy part of it is not.
And I think that's such a valid thing to be looking at, is these are not courses that are approved, or even the certificate is not from an accredited agency. So I think that's concerning. I think what you expressed, Tony, that you're getting inquiries and you're seeing things where the RDH is attached to that, that's concerning also.
So I think.
Sandy?
I think it's important to see who is overseeing this function. So if we could do some research, or maybe, see what background these people that are getting the certificate, it has to be, I would hope that there is somebody overseeing this, if it's not us.
And then in the meantime, while we're researching it, what could happen? And in the meantime, does staff go after anybody that they might see with this kind of a thing because it's already in there, it already tells exactly what we're supposed to do, yet they've told us they can't exactly see it that way?
Would this fall under like false advertisement, because she put the RDH behind it?
Well,
It
okay,
would go in that
let me
category?
clarify a little something here. To date, we have not received any complaints in regards to this. Now, they could generalize it if we receive a complaint as far as I wasn't treated appropriately or what have you, but techniques, obviously from the complainant are not that specific. As far as items pertaining to the accreditation of the school or anything, I need to give them the benefit of the doubt because we haven't done our due diligence to research that academy. So like I said, I only had a short time to download the information to prepare for this, and so additional research I feel is warranted. Right now, the only wrongdoing that we can identify is on that business card of advertising for the RDH. So that we will address. I did have one question for Michelle because it was her public member at the teleconference that brought this up. Was there any further identifier as far as why this was presented to a future agenda item?
The only thing that I heard from the public member was that there was concern among those that are offering myofunctional therapy. Apparently, what I believe I remember hearing is that the speech and language pathologists are looking into it, and they feel that they need to own this particular area. And I think there's concern because I don't have a lot of background. I would love to have more background, but I believe myofunctional therapy has been around for a few decades now. And so I think that was the concern. And I think that public member really thought that the law, that she felt that when it came before COMDA years ago, before we were a dental hygiene board, that it was determined that a dental hygienist could do this. Now, I don't have any evidence. I don't know anything about that. So that would be something you'd want to investigate as well. It was apparently looked at many years ago. And so that's the reason why I think we should look into it a little bit more before we make a decision. And in the meantime, still stand behind the law that we have and say, if they're saying they're doing therapy, that is against the law, because all they can really say is they can do oral myofunctional evaluation. That's all their business card should be able to say.
And I think we now may be ready. Have your light on, Noel. Do you want to speak? We now are ready for public comment. Thank you for patiently waiting.
Laurel Blake, CDHA Public Health Council. This was from several years ago, bits and pieces that might help you try to figure out about this academy. I actually took a 3-day, pretty extensive course from them, just for my own educational reasons, not to particularly practice. They have, in the recent years, really used a lot of international studies from, I think particularly Italy and Brazil and all that. So they're trying to get the scientific, background to it. I don't think they are, that I know are, certified or whatever by any dental board, but I think they just feel that it's, this is something that is kind of in hygienists, their area. There's many hygienists that practice it, and these guys have really, this academy, because it's local here, has grown in terms of what they offer, putting themselves with these they have a lot of international, when they have the meeting, a lot of these international authors of articles on this come in, and So I know kind of water under the bridge. I think it's worth studying, but that's it. They just have become a lot bigger lately and hooked their wagon or whatever to a more international thing to have, evidence-based research behind it. And so, yes, they are local, and I know you'll contact them.
Real quick. So then it begs the question, if it's determined it's not within the scope of practice at this time, and I am certified by AOMT, you're going to call me and tell me I cannot use my certification to do assessment on patients.
I
I
think,
believe that
therapies.
you'll be called and say you cannot advertise that you're a dental hygienist. You can
Okay.
advertise that you're an oral myofunctional therapist,
Okay.
just as if you were a personal trainer or someone like that.
Okay,
But
just
you
wanted to
cannot use your,
clarify.
I believe that's the issue, that you
Okay,
cannot use your
thanks.
RDH on.
Any other members of the public like to comment? Daniel?
Yes, so even if they were to advertise as an RDH that they can do assessment, I don't see why they would, because it requires them to be under the general supervision of a dentist. So it would be the dentist's patient that they're treating, not necessarily their patient. And some of the advertisements that I saw, it's their own practice that they're doing this under, not under any supervision of a dentist.
So, any other comments from members of the committee? The motion is the motion is myofunctional therapy is currently not within the dental hygiene scope of practice. However, the myofunctional evaluation, thank you, is, and we guide the myofunctional therapists to, if they're interested in pursuing it, becoming part of the dental hygiene scope of practice, the procedure is, and we would outline it. We would also invite to do further research and have people come here to find out more about it. Well, forget about the last part then, but you did want clarification on all those other things I saw.
There does need to be a full vote for that.
There is a motion, yeah.
Okay, so I have one question. So no one complained about this particular provider, right? So it doesn't go in front of us for us to look. So we can't really, we're not gonna look at the charts or a patient, we're not gonna go down that road, correct? Okay.
Any other clarification or questions about the motion?
Oh.
Pardon? The motion is that myofunctional therapy is not currently within the dental hygiene scope of practice. However, myofunctional therapy evaluation is. If people who are myofunctional therapists want to, yes. If myofunctional therapists want to pursue, hey, we have longer motions. We've had a bunch today.
For that being your motion in the first place, so I think you're adding to it a bit, but okay.
I received a approval of the second on that, because remember I had to change seconds?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
And that, if you want to divide it, just ask it now.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the motion on the floor right now is myofunctional therapy is currently not within the dental hygiene scope of practice. However, myofunctional evaluation is.
I don't believe that was the original motion that has been put forward and seconded. So I think that you either have to withdraw your motion and remake a motion and then split them up or however you want to do it. But that wasn't the original motion that we had before discussion.
What the member asked me to do is to divide it. So I am dividing it. But you are correct in that I need to make sure that the second agrees with that division. So do you agree with that division?
Yes.
So that is the motion, right, Jason? There should be no problem with that.
That's correct.
Okay, so we're ready to vote. Etzelen, call the roll.
Susan Good.
Aye.
Michelle Hurlbut.
No.
Noel Kelch. Timothy Martinez.
Well, yes. Yes.
Sandra Klein.
No.
Nicolette Moultrie.
No.
Edselen Pahol, yes. Gary Shea.
No.
Evangeline Ward.
So the motion fails, 5-4. So we have no motions on the floor. Do we have any other motions?
The second half.
That's Noel's motion. Go ahead, Noel. That's the one that we would have them, give them the information that they need to be able to pursue.
You can whisper it in my ear and I'll listen.
You can say something right now. Go ahead. We don't have a motion on the floor.
I am totally in support of assessment. So is that what we're voting on?
Evaluation, yes.
Yes, okay, I made the wrong statement.
But it's already there, that's why I didn't think there was a need,
I'm-
for a motion.
Okay, I didn't mean to say
You wanted to change your vote to no.
correct, because assessment's
fine.
okay.
You'd have to put it in again.
Oh, okay.
It still fails, so
I
it's
think
fine.
that it's already in our statute, which was
I'm
read
just like,
by our
okay.
legal, and so I don't think that we need to clarify that. I
the
think
first
we need
part?
to just clarify it to
Second.
staff, should they get these phone calls. However, I don't think it needs to be voted upon by us because it's already in our statute and regulations. So if we are requesting another motion for something else, but otherwise it's already there, and I don't think that we need to mess with how we are defining our statutes and regulations based on this one item where it could have other impacts that we're not even thinking of. So again, I don't think we should even be discussing this. I think it's just more of a clarification for staff to answer the public's questions.
Yeah, I think the simple answer is it's not listed. Therapy.
So therefore, the staff's request of us is null and void. You already have direction.
Well, I anticipate I have direction anyways, just to do further research on this topic, because we are definitely unfamiliar with it. And the wrongdoing that I've identified, and we will continue to research on this, is the individual that I presented a sample of, is that she's advertising myofunctional therapy along with her RDH on the business card. That's the only wrongdoing that has been identified, and if we identify further licensees who do the same, we will conduct appropriate action to address that issue. But right now, it's just something because it was brought to the future agenda items to discuss, to see if this is actually within the scope of practice. That's the fact-finding mission that the board has, and you have now directed staff to take on that role to find the information that you need.
And you do not believe that we need a motion to that effect?
Do we need to know? Okay. So my motion was to direct the staff in the coming months before our next meeting to investigate the category of myofunctional therapists in relation to the dental hygienist licensure, and to bring forward the appropriate parties so that the board can hear both sides, whether it be the speech pathologist or the Myofunctional Therapy Association, or both. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to direct staff to research myofunctional therapy and bring forward testimony from various sides of the issue, including
Speech pathologists
pathologists.
and the associations or academies that give certification.
Okay. Discussion.
I would like to add the dental board into that, especially if we're talking about scope of practice.
Thank you.
And that's fine with the second, Michelle?
I think it's premature to add the dental board at this time unless we make a recommendation. By law, if we make a recommendation for scope of practice, then we involve the dental board. But I think at this point we shouldn't, because we may not make a recommendation for a change. I don't know. Tony, how do you feel about that?
I agree with that as far as, we're still fact-finding. So trying to project that we're going to make a determination by the next meeting, it may go on even further than that. I don't know the schedules of these individuals that may be able to be available for presentations. It may have to wait till the meeting afterwards. So I think before the board makes their decision, I think the information needs to come in first.
And theoretically, there could be another board that's already overseeing this, correct? So that would be before anything, if it's already taken care of, then we can look into how they're supervising RDHs that are doing it.
I think it's more that I want to make sure too that the dentists who are employing dental hygienists to provide some of this therapy are also invited to the table, because maybe we're not looking at something that they are. So whether that's inviting the CDA or another organization that has more knowledge to that, that would give us a more complete picture of how this is being done in dentistry currently, because it does sound like there are dentists that have implemented this into their practices, and we certainly want to make sure that we're hearing from them.
So I want to point out just a structural item, and that is that we have many future items that are brought up. And 2 years ago, I had asked the executive officer at your recommendation we were having some concern about why some things were brought up as future items right away and other things waited. And so we asked for a report every meeting from the executive officer on where we stand on various future items that were brought forward. And this one was brought forward at our last conference call meeting. And I wondered why that it was being brought forward right away when there's other items as well. And I asked if there was some urgency, and the urgency was that there are some people that are using it and using the RDH designation in their advertisement. And so it then also seemed to me that it should be going to committee rather than to the committee as a whole. And I understand the committee wants to not take action, and that was the majority. But in the future, I think that if something is going to be taken out of order, a future agenda item, that it then should, and it is not an urgent matter because the majority feels that it is not, then we should be able to determine when something comes to this board. And I think the last hour of discussion that we've had has been a waste because it wasn't necessary. We could have, if staff really didn't need direction right away, then why wouldn't it have gone to committee first and the committee have done all that investigation, et cetera? So it's disappointing to me that we've come to this point.
So I just want to add something to that, because to the consumer, how much did they pay? Were they getting, did they really get a service that was necessary? How much, were they paying thousands of dollars? That to me would be, more escalated, a higher level as a priority, that's all, but I don't know.
Well, what we do, and specifically myself, when items for future agenda items come up, I vet them to see if there's a consumer protection issue. And with the evidence that we found with potentially false advertising on this and misleading the public, that's why it was moved higher than other issues that came up on future agenda items. Those always take priorities, and that's the way we run the office. As far as, this particular issue, I think, like I said, further information is warranted for us to have an informed decision before we act.
But now, Tony, you are acting on those RDHs who are using the RDH behind their name. You just said a few minutes ago, right? And I
Correct.
do want to clarify one thing. This has come forward more than once, and we've tabled it a few times. So I think it's good that we are talking about this and bringing it forward. It's not the first time that this has come up to the board.
The executive officer was unaware of the past because that was before. But I will say that the initial request was, didn't know what to do and wanted direction from us. And we're going to do some more research. And so we're back to where we started. It's obviously not that significant. But I just think structurally, these kinds of things should go to subcommittees, and that would greatly save us in doing this in a full committee. Because then that subcommittee has the expertise, comes and gives us the recommendations. And we're here listening to the subcommittees anyway.
I do want to say, I have no objection for it coming before the full committee. I think it was a good discussion, because oftentimes, when it goes to a subcommittee, many of the members can't participate. I do want to ask that if in fact you're going to be looking at those practitioners, those dental hygiene practitioners that are doing oral myofunctional therapy, to maybe do a little bit of I don't want us to cite and fine until we really know what happened years ago. What I was told is that it was kind of approved that they could do it. I don't know if you want to do a cease and desist kind of letter as opposed to going, I don't want to say going after, that's not the term I want to use, but actually, telling them that they're breaking the law, because we don't really have all the facts yet. So I think maybe a letter saying you can't do it, and then if they continue, then maybe there would be. I just think that would be the fairer way to do it, because we're still this question of years ago it being approved.
And we can pursue that. We can put them on notice to let them know that, what they're doing as far as advertising is against what's in the Dental Practice Act. As far as bringing this issue before the full board rather than the subcommittee, the reason why I chose to do that is because the licensing subcommittee, which would review this, two of the members, and honestly, I anticipated that this would go over more than one meeting. Two of the members that are on the licensing subcommittee are no longer going to be with us as of the new year, or at least anticipated, because their terms are ending. So with that, and being over multiple meetings, I figured to carry the conversation through and to have that institutional memory of the discussions that were previously had, it should go before the full board.
Any other further discussion on this? Did we vote on that motion?
No, we did not.
We did not yet, okay. So, members of the public, any comment on the motion on the floor? Which is?
Oh, you want me to say it again?
Yes.
Who took notes? Okay.
Direct staff to research.
I want to direct staff to research the RDH performing myofunctional therapy, and to bring forward to our next meeting both sides of the representatives from both sides of the discussion.
And it was seconded by Michelle. We've had discussion here as members. Any public members want to add anything? Seeing none, we're then ready for the vote.
Susan Good,
No.
Michelle Hurlbut,
Yes.
Noel Kelch,
Yes.
Timothy Martinez,
Yes.
Sandra Klein,
Yes.
Nicolette Moultrie,
Aye.
Edsel Pujol, aye. Gary Shea, Evangeline Ward.
Aye.
The motion passes. And any other discussion, comment on this item? Seeing none, we are going to get to go to that very popular one, the public comment for items not on the agenda, number 12. And members of the public, this is usually at the beginning of the meeting, and we thought that since we often talked about the items at the beginning, and then you'd have more things that you might want to talk about at the end, we thought that we would go ahead and put public comment for items not on the agenda here. So, any other comments?
I just want to make sure Michelle Hurlbut's future item agenda gets put in. Do you remember what it was?
Informed consent?
Yes.
Yes,
It's in there.
For me.
So informed consent. Anyone else? Members of the public? Okay. Thank you. We then will go to the future agenda items from members of the committee. And I would like to place future meeting locations. How far out are we? Where's our next meeting?
The meeting the dates have been determined. The meeting location has not. I believe it's April 23rd, 24th. It's April. The Friday, Saturday in the mid-20s.
I thought we had voted on a motion which would give a rotation that was north, south, central. Did we not determine that?
We did determine that, but the location is still to be determined as far as the exact location.
So,
Yes.
so is it north, south, central is my question. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. It'll be close to central.
Okay, what does that mean?
That means I'm going to look through central area of California and see what's available.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's going to be central. I just thought,
As close as I can make it for the cost efficiency of the board and location.
okay, then the other item I'd like to add is membership in REB. I think, is that the right terminology? Okay. And then committee representation on REB and credits.
Board representation.
Board representation, thank you. Very good point. Are there any other future agenda items from members?
I'm sorry, I guess I got lost. I already have on my phone April 17, 18, but you're saying some different dates in April?
Oh, that's a good question, but let me look.
Don't hold me to the weekend. I wrote it down, but I don't.
You had April 17th?
That's what I had too, 17, 18. It was old, though. It was a old.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Okay, then that's the weekend.
Okay, so that's the weekend.
I apologize, it's corrected. April 17th and 18th.
Central somewhere.
Yes, we're going to be working on
Yeah.
locations, and then we'll be working on locations for the following meeting as well.
And then what is the rotation for where is the location area for November?
Well, we scheduled one for July. Now, whether we have
right.
enough to have an in-person meeting or not on the agenda is still to be determined, but that's tentatively for Sacramento. And then for November, we'll be in Southern California.
And what date was it in July?
24th, 25th?
And November? Okay. Any other items? All right.
Suggest if possible, November meeting to be Sacramento. I do prefer Sacramento in the winter. Thank God it didn't rain because I wouldn't be here today. But I do prefer Sacramento.
I think the challenge that we have with that is that we had wanted to have representation throughout the state. So what you could do then, could you make your motion where you would have Sacramento in November and Southern California in July? Just wondering. Is that an option?
I'd like to make a motion that we just swap the locations, so July, if we could please have it in South,
And then November in SAC.
in Sacramento, Northern California.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Vanjie and seconded by Nikki that we switch the locations for, that the July meeting be in Southern California and that the November meeting be in Sacramento. Any discussion?
I know before when we looked at this, it was so expensive in Southern California in July as part of why we did not do Southern California in July. But I'll turn that might even been, it may have changed, I don't know, but I would like, if we're gonna do this, I would like you to look at that before we make any commitment to that.
So in San Diego, there's not downtown San Diego, but there's some very great rates outside of San Diego. So,
In July?
yes, absolutely.
Okay. So are you suggesting then, Noel, that we table this?
I would say we need to research before we at the April meeting, we could make that decision and let Tony have the time to see if he can find something that's reasonably priced.
And there's a motion on the floor, so then you would need to table it.
I think we're okay with the motion, in my opinion.
Okay,
Yeah, there's plenty of
Okay.
areas.
We could
to-
always change it too, couldn't we?
okay, yeah, okay, thanks.
If it don't
Okay,
work
so
out-
there's a motion on the floor. Members of the public, any comment on the motion?
The motion on the floor is just the location?
Yes.
Okay, no, I want to talk about the dates, so, nope.
Okay. No other further comment? Excellent. Please call the roll call vote.
Susan Good,
Aye.
Michelle Hurlbut. Yes. Noel Kelch,
Yes,
Timothy Martinez,
Yes.
Sandra Klein. Yes. Nicolette Moultrie,
Aye.
Edsel Pujol, aye. Gary Shea.
Aye.
Evangeline Ward.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, thank you. Now we'll go to, and there's no other future agenda items from members? Let's go to future agenda items
It's not
from
future
members of the
agenda.
public.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a comment on, now, the November date you voted on last meeting. So you agreed to the November dates at the last meeting, correct? Okay, so the only way you could change those dates would be to have someone on the prevailing side bring that up, correct? You couldn't, the November date, you have a staff member who has a conflict on the November date that was chosen and isn't comfortable saying that there's a conflict. So I'm saying it for that staff person.
I think we can work through on that and see what we can provide. Okay.
Okay, well, just so you know, so you're gonna have one staff member that wouldn't be at that particular meeting, the November meeting, and that's Dr. Petty. So,
Any, no motion to that effect? Okay. Then, and I think this is the only year, like in, what is it, like 100 years or something, that Thanksgiving is so late? I read that, yeah, and it's like, because this has been really nice. This has been a perfect time where that November 2021 is gonna be close, yeah. All right. And there's no future agenda items from the public, right? So we're good there, none more, oh, Michelle?
No, I just wanted to make an announcement before we adjourn, so I don't know when we could do that.
I would do that now.
I just wanted to, I just wanted to say thank you to you, Susan, for doing such a great job as our president the last 2 years. I know this is your last meeting, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. I know that it's not easy being president, but you've done an admirable job and led us well, and I know you're not going away, but I just wanted to acknowledge and say thank you very much.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. And I have to say that serving on this board, and you'll see my column when it comes out, but it has been a real pleasure, and I really like the idea that I feel very comfortable in expressing to all of you exactly what I say and to disagree, and you feel very comfortable with that too, and that really means a lot to me. You're not devaluing what my contribution is, and that means a lot, so thank you. All right, this gets us to, let's see, we are on item 14, adjournment of the November 23rd. The time, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye. No, you gotta do the roll call. Yes. Apparently, it's not to adjourn. Is that correct, Jason?
Just adjourn.
Okay, because I understand that this is wanted by all, this meeting is adjourned. It is